Would you briefly explain how CLTs differ from traditional models when it comes to affordable housing?
Sure, Karen, I'm happy to explain. So, the key differentiation with community land trust versus traditional affordable housing models is the permanent nature of the affordability. So, community land trusts go back in the US to late 1800s and even further back overseas centuries ago. But the core premise is that the community owns the land in trust forever. Forever can have certain limitations, but generally, the land is held in perpetuity and it is leased to homeowners who build and own homes on top of the land. So you've got a split between the land and the vertical structure, typically a house, although it could be any kind of commercial structure. And the key issue here is that through the ground lease, there are limitations on affordability restrictions in terms of who can buy the house. So different municipalities put in different income restrictions, often tied to area median income, which is a HUD specification. So it's a percentage like 60%, 80%. So when you have a lease with that restriction, whoever is the tenant on that ground lease must be within that restriction. The other key component is that when the home is sold, it can only be sold to someone who is bound by that income restriction as well. So in this case, we have permanent affordability. Traditional affordability models, LIHTC and others, generally have limited durations in terms of affordability cap, typically 10, 15, 20, maybe more years. So you have this constant replenishing. So once the affordability burns off, the municipality must step in and sort of pay down to allow someone else to come in. So municipalities, foundations like this investment vehicle for them because, again, they get a much longer term return on permanent affordability. So that's sort of the basic premise of a community land trust.
What would you say are some of the biggest barriers to scaling CLTs, and how are some of the communities that you've potentially worked on overcoming those?
So if you look at the acronym CLT, let's focus on the first word community. So the most important thing is you have a deeply rooted, what I call anchor community group. This may be a religious-based group, a culturally based group, like an art colony, art community, some type of other cultural activity that has been there for a long time. Because basically, you're setting up a democratic governing board that manages this trust. It's not about the real estate to start, because if you don't have a solid democratic management organization that can self-manage for a very long time, it's not going to work. So that's the biggest challenge is getting that group together. Assuming you have that group in place, then the next challenge is getting the land. Often in urban areas, large swaths of land are owned or controlled by government agencies or other nonprofits, and there must be an obligation to get the land back in control or an ownership position into the community. And that typically happens only when the community can illustrate that it has the ability to develop real estate if this is ground up. Community land trusts can work with existing properties for rehab purposes, but many markets now they are focused on ground up. So you've got this relationship between the community and the landholder, and it's essentially a partnership to make sure that the land is appropriately developed going forward. And finally, the trust thing is that this is a key thing in terms of the broader community. The residents have trust in the CLT in terms of abiding by the rules, the commitments to affordability, and letting others in as long as they meet the requirements. So you don't have an exclusivity issue evolving.
What does the future of affordable housing look like to you? But specifically, I'd like to know what you think about that question, especially with the new tax reforms that have come into play. How do you
Mhm.
think we might be affected in this particular sector? I know it's early days, but what do you anticipate?
Right. So with the recent tax law that just came into place about a week ago here in the U.S., there's going to be some challenges because much of the cuts that are coming into place are near-term cash-based. These would be grant-based programs from the federal government, and they're being replaced by a longer-term tax credit program. So you've got a more immediate lessening of cash going out into the community, and you have a longer term, maybe more impactful, but will take much more time because with tax credits, they're typically there's time involved in getting them into the market, getting development teams to receive the credits and execute the program. So it may take a couple of years. So I think we're going to be in a gap scenario here where direct cash is going to create gap funding And the question is how that's going to be filled. Is it going to be filled by state funding, philanthropic funding, or no funding, or some combination? But I am sensing somewhat of a slowdown might be happening given some of these changes, at least in the U.S. and federal government policy for affordable housing.